Welcome to the Belly Brain Connection. I'm Hannah Winans. I'm a certified functional nutrition counselor, and I'm on a mission to help educate people about the connection between their gut health and mental well-being. I believe that our gut health is the cornerstone to our overall health, and when we nourish our bodies, we nourish our minds. Belly Brain is for informational purposes only. I'm not offering medical advice here. If you need medical advice, please consult your physician. Thanks for tuning back in. Today is episode 22, and this is part 2 of the 3-part series, The Gut Disruptors. I appreciate you coming back. Last week, we covered ultra-processed foods, specifically the emulsifiers that are in ultra-processed foods. And I wanted to expand on that just a little bit because when I listened to that episode back, I realized I kind of didn't do a very good job of explaining emulsifiers. At least I don't think so. And that happens sometimes. I listen to these back and I'm like, oh, I forgot to mention this. So I'll expand on that just a little bit. But mainly, we're going to be talking about sugar and what to look for, where sugar is hiding in a lot of the foods that we're eating, particularly processed foods and ultra processed foods. Last week we talked a little bit about reading labels, and so I wanted to dive into that a little bit more so that you can recognize sugar when you see it. And super excited. The Gut Paradox book is out. We're going to cover this in a couple episodes. This is it. This is the book. I know I've said that about a couple other books that I brought to you guys, but new books keep coming out, which tells me I'm right on track with what I'm doing with Belly Brain. And it was interesting. I talked about this book. It's written by Dr. Stephen Gundry. And I listened to an interview that he had, and I posted it a few months ago, and I talked a little bit about it and how excited I was about it. But the book wasn't out yet. And I knew that the book was going to be amazing. And then I got busy with everything, with work and life and everything I have going on that's not Belly Brain, and completely forgot to buy the book. And a friend of mine who's really kind of diving into the health space, he reached out to me this weekend and was like, hey, are you reading this book? And I went, oh my God, that's the book I was recommending to everybody. So I audiobooked it. It's amazing. I feel totally validated with everything that I'm bringing to you guys. Um, it's so good. It really breaks down why our gut health really is the cornerstone of our overall health. It breaks it down into chapters going over, mental health, all kinds of things. So we'll talk about that later, but I just wanted to let you know I'm just really excited about it. So The Gut Brain Paradox by Dr. Stephen Gundry. I got mine off Amazon, and would love if you kind of want to book club it. I think we'll do it in not next episode, but the episode after. So if you feel like you want to have read it before I talk about it, that would be great. And if you have questions, or just, I would love to hear your comments and feedback if you do read the book, because it is something super special, and I'm just really thrilled that it's out. Okay, and then local food finds. I'm trying to bring to you every week something I find locally that I really love. A few episodes ago, I talked about the food of the week was dates. And so I talked about the health benefit of dates and how much I love them. I'm incorporating them, especially on the days that I do my strength workout. I need more carbs on that day. And because I don't do a lot of grains and things like that, it can be kind of hard to get carbs in a strange way. And dates are great because they don't spike my blood sugar levels. They have a lot of potassium and fiber in them. But anyways, so dates are great. I found some delicious ones at Eureka Natural Foods, and they're called Julie's, Joolies. And they're out of Coachella, which I thought was funny. I don't know why. I don't know if Coachella is like the date place. But I just think of like the Coachella festival. But anyways, they're somewhat, California, United States. So I like that. And they're organic, and they're really big and plump and juicy and just super decadent. So Julie's dates. And again, I found them at Eureka Natural Foods in McKinleyville. So to expand on emulsifiers, I just wanted to explain a little bit more about what emulsifiers do in our processed and ultra processed foods. So emulsifiers are kind of what help make foods really creamy. For instance, ice cream, yogurt, even with breads, they can kind of give them that fluff and help the food product kind of bind together. So not all emulsifiers are bad for you. It's just there are some that really can cause problems that they're finding with our gut mucosal lining, and we know we want to protect that. And again, I covered that in the last episode in more detail. But I just kind of wanted to help you create an image of what it does. And so, for instance, it can bind things together. Like let's see, let's take the yogurt that I make versus the yogurt that I can buy store-bought yogurt. So the yogurt that I make, when I make it, it kind of separates. And so when I take it off out of the yogurt cooker or maker, it always has like a little bit of water on top. And I kind of have to stir it up to make it creamy. Versus if you were to buy something like YoPlay yogurt, which is not a yogurt I necessarily recommend, but it's more of a processed, ultra processed yogurt, it's creamy right out of the gate, right? Or ice cream, ice cream that's super, super creamy. You can look at that even with some of the more natural brands. You can see that they've got like carrageenan a lot of times, which is an emulsifier in them. So it's kind of a binding agent and to create the kind of consistency and textures that we really like to see in our foods. It was interesting because I really love this yogurt called Strauss yogurt, which I've talked about. And one of the reasons why I like it is because it's really creamy and it's kind of a newer yogurt that I discovered. I found out my mom's been eating it for years, but I was really worried after I did the last podcast because I'm learning about this stuff right along with you. And emulsifiers wasn't something I really paid attention to. And so I thought, oh no, one of the things I love about this yogurt is it's super creamy and I know it's organic. So I was like, okay, well, it probably won't have like the bad emulsifiers in it, but I just was really curious. I checked it out. No emulsifiers. In fact, they actually kind of brag about the fact that they don't have to use emulsifiers to make their yogurt really creamy. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I just want to take a second and kind of interrupt everything else we're talking about today to recap a little bit on the emulsifiers and give a little bit better of an explanation. Where you're really going to be looking out for it are going to be think about those foods where you just really love the texture. There's probably some kind of an emulsifier in there to make that texture happen. And being aware is just, again, once you're aware, you can make better decisions. Okay, so let's get on to sugar and why it can be a gut disruptor. We all know sugar is not great for us, especially processed sugar. Sugar is in all kinds of things. We have fructose, which is in fruit. We have straight up, processed sugar like CNH, pure cane sugar. Remember that song? I remember that song when I was little. I won't sing it, I'll spare you. But brown sugar, molasses, all of these products have sugar in them. And what we're going to talk about are the ones that you might not be aware of. But first off, I'll explain to you a little bit about why sugar can be a gut disruptor. So in the previous episodes, we've learned, and it's really exciting because Dr. Gundry covers a lot of this in the gut-brain paradox, but we've learned that our gut buddies or our gut bacteria, gut microbiota, whatever you want to call them, our belly buddies, they kind of run the show. And they're learning more and more about how they drive our cravings for food, for exercise. And the more of what we feed them, the more they're going to crave. So if you have a diet that's really high in fruit and high in sugar, you're going to kind of probably develop what's called a sweet tooth because your gut buddies, that's what they like, that's what they thrive on, and they're going to make you crave more of that. Remember, our gut buddies speak to our brain. It's a whole thing. So they literally, I think of them as being like the little commanders for our whole system. And so the more you're eating of something, the more they're going to crave. And I was there. I had a pretty, at the height of like my gut dysbiosis, I had what's called candida, which is overgrowth of yeast in my gut, and which is really uncomfortable. And a lot of people have it. And it would flare up, especially if I would eat too much fruit or sugar, it would really get bad. And so to get rid of that, I really had to stop with a lot of sugar and even fruit for a while. And it calmed down, and I'm pretty careful with that. But what I realized when I did that, when I kind of changed my diet over from fruit, too much fruit, I still have fruit, but I'm just careful with it. Too much fruit, too much sugar. I kind of incorporated more meats and fat. Of course, it's always organic. It's always, well, almost always pasture raised or grass fed, but or fermented. I love fermented beef sticks. But anyways, I realized that I jokingly say I converted from a sweet tooth to a meat tooth because now I actually kind of crave meat. And I'm sure it has to do with the way my microbiome has changed. But when we are consuming too much sugar, that's when we're going to see like some of that dysbiosis start to happen, specifically things like candida. We find that sugars in a lot of the ultra processed foods, which of course we know that those hijack our gut lining. And when we're looking at processed sugar, we're also looking at a lot, when we eat a lot of it, we're looking at a lot of glucose spikes. So we're going to be, our moods are going to be up and down. We're going to really have that kind of high and low. Well, you see it in kids, right? We see it in kids when we give them too much sugar, how they act, and then they crash. And why would we think that's any different for adults? Just because we can maybe hide it a little bit better, the same thing happens to us too. But specifically in the gut, ultra processed foods with sugar in them, and straight, processed sugar, that's going to be the thing that really can inflame and flare up your gut microbiome and the overall way your gut feels. So the candida yeast overgrowth is kind of the thing that sticks out to me, because I think a lot of people may be suffering from that. And the more you have of it, the more you're going to want to crave sugar. It's really interesting, and it's kind of hard to deal with, but once you do, you're going to feel a lot better. So it's kind of just slowly getting rid of sugar out of your diet, and starting with getting rid of the like true sugar that like ice cream, candy, maybe replacing that with fruit instead, and then eventually kind of switching to lower fruit or lower sugar fruits. So I found this really great website, and it's called Tiny Health, and I think maybe it's for it's kind of to help moms with children and kind of how to help them eat healthier. But I really liked how they broke down and kind of explained some of the effects of sugar on our bodies. So I'm going to read to you directly just so I can kind of stay on track. But here we go. So when you eat processed sugar, your blood glucose spikes quickly, and then leaves you feeling tired and craving more. This cycle puts stress on your metabolism, increasing the risk of insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and metabolic syndrome. High fructose corn syrup, a common sweetener made from corn, is a major contributor to the rising obesity and diseases affecting the heart and metabolism. So I think we've known that. I think we've heard about, high fructose corn syrup and how we didn't have that in our diet. I want to say even like in the 70s, I think it made its appearance, or really began to make its appearance in the 80s. And that's when we started to see the levels of obesity kind of skyrocket in our country. Okay, gut disruptions. Excess sugar feeds unfriendly bacteria, allowing them to outnumber the good ones. This imbalance can weaken your gut lining, increasing inflammation and leading to issues like leaky gut. Now, in the book Super Gut, Dr. Gundry does a really good job of explaining that kind of battle that's going on in your gut microbiome between your good gut buddies and your bad gut villains. I guess it wouldn't be buddies, but there's a battle happening in there. And so the minute you start to lose some of those good bacteria, the bad guys can kind of take over. And that's when you start ending up with things like leaky gut and gut dysbiosis. I like to think, like in my mind, I made it up like Star Wars in the gut. So if you're an 80s kid, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so mood and behavior, again, tying that belly or making that belly brain connection. Your gut and brain are deeply connected to the gut brain axis, and sugar throws that balance off. Excess sugar disrupts the production of key neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which are vital for mood and mental clarity. The imbalance has been linked to anxiety, depression, brain fog, and for those with ADHD, too much sugar can lead to energy spikes, crashes, affecting focus and behavior. So going back to, remember, 90 to 95% of the serotonin in our bodies is produced in our gut. So if sugar is disrupting our gut, it's going to, obviously it's going to start impacting our moods. And I think that with kids, we can see that pretty quickly. It doesn't take much when you've got a kid that's gone to a birthday party and had a ton of sugar, and the child that comes back from that party is typically not the same child you dropped off. So, if you're a parent, you get it. Okay, let's talk about where sugar hides in our food. And I keep having to go to my notes, so I'm sorry if you're watching this, because I kind of have things all over the place as usual. But we'll talk about where sugar hides in your food. Sugar is often the number one additive in processed foods, even those that are advertised as healthy. Ultra-processed foods now make up more than half of all calories in the U.S. diet and contribute nearly 90% of added sugars. Added sugars account for about 21% of the calories in the average ultra-processed food. meaning making it much easier to consume far more sugar than we realize. Now, when we're eating straight sugar, because again, we know there's natural sugars in fruit, but when you're eating straight sugar, we're missing the fiber that typically comes with sugar in its natural state, or fructose. So if you eat a strawberry, it's sweet, you're going to get those sugars in it, but you've got the fiber to go along with it, which really, helps your body to process that sugar. Why fruit juices can be so bad is because we basically just taken all the fiber out of it, right? And now it's just like straight sugar. I mean, okay, it's natural, it's not processed, but it's going to run that same process through your body of spiking your sugar. So, for a lot of us kids, especially, my generation, we grew up on apple juice and orange juice. And those, I mean, that's a treat. That's not something that people should be eating every day. And so I really have shifted my approach with fruits to me, because I am pretty low sugar. I mean, I cheat from time to time, it's fine, but I'm really careful about looking for sugars in the foods that I eat every day, so that when I want to have a treat, it's a real sugar treat. It's not, I didn't waste all my sugar calories and sugar, whatever you want to call it. I didn't waste all my sugar on ketchup, right? Because sugar hides in ketchup and other things. I want my sugar to be like legit dessert or a piece of fruit. So when you can start noticing and looking for and eliminating those foods that have sneaky sugars in them, then you can have those treats from time to time, and it's fine. I think the problem is that we're consuming sugar all day long and not even knowing it. And so then when we go to have a cookie or a cupcake or, grapes or whatever it is, we're just kind of compounding on the sugar we've already been eating. So anyways, so sneaky sugar juices, really watch those with your kids. They are, again, spiking those blood sugar levels, just almost like as if they had a soda. The only difference is it's a natural, it's a natural product, and doesn't have a bunch of chemicals in it. Maybe switch to, I know a lot of people are doing seltzers these days. I love seltzers, and mixing them with a little bit of fruit juice can make a big difference and give you a little bit of that sweet, but also not, completely hijack your blood sugar levels. Okay, so let's talk about sugar and what it looks like as an ingredient and where it can be sneaky. So common forms of sugar that you're going to find on labels: agave nectar, barley malt, beet sugar, brown sugar, cane sugar, of course, coconut sugar, corn syrup, dextrose, fructose, lactose, sucralose. Here's a tip: if you see ose, it's some kind of a sugar typically. So I learned that in my functional nutrition classes. So fructose, lactose, sucralose, high fructose corn syrup, honey, fruit juice concentrates, maltose, and the list goes on and on and on. But and some of these are obvious and you can see them in the ingredients. And I just always kind of say, look for the healthier option. So that would be something like honey, or even like maple syrup, coconut sugar, date sugar. There's date sugar that's really interesting. Those are a better option than just the straight, white sugar that we're used to. But keep in mind, it's all sugar. It's all going to kind of spike our blood sugar levels, and we need to just be aware of when we're eating it. And when things say sugar free, well, maybe it's free of the, processed white sugar, but did they sneak something else in there? And do we really want to, be aware of that glycemic load that food has? When stevia came out, there's monk fruit and there's sugar alcohols. I kind of got into those because I had more of a sweet tooth back then. You want to be really careful with those because they're much sweeter than regular sugar. In fact, I think stevia and monk fruit are 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar. And too much of that, you're going to continue to drive those sugar cravings that you have. So your gut buddies and your taste buds recognize that as sweet. So even though it's lower calorie, you might still be causing those issues that make you crave more sugar. So just be really careful with those. I think they're a better alternative, especially monk fruit, than straight up sugar, but they are going to, most likely, you're going to see some blood sugar spikes with that too. And it might make you overconsume because you feel like, oh, well, it's not as bad as regular sugar. So just be aware of those. Here it says, because they are so much sweeter, they can make naturally sweet foods like fruit less satisfying, influencing long-term eating habits. Sugar alcohols like erythritol, xylitol, and maltitol. But those, I'm sure you've had them before. They can kind of, they should come with a warning about what that's going to do to you later. Aspartame, saccharin, I think most of us know we want to stay away from that stuff. I think it was deemed safe in small quantities back in the 80s, but I'm learning more and more about aspartame and how bad it really is for us. So, for me, I was a Diet Coke girl. I mean, I grew up on, as a teenager in the 90s, frozen yogurt and Diet Coke and Snapples. Those are my go-tos. And oh my gosh, now that I know what I know, I'm like, that's horrible. No wonder I couldn't think. I had just no, talk about brain fog, but I really regret all the Diet Coke that I drank in the day, because back then it was, I thought being skinny was healthy. Like that's how I equated health, was that if you were fit and skinny, you were fine. And we've learned that that is not the case. So, anyways, diet sodas, I've really learned, and I had a real diet soda addiction, are really not great for you. I mean, maybe in a pinch, if they can get you off of really high sugar sodas, if for some people they're super soda addicted, but then you need to get off those Diet Cokes too, because those have the aspartame, and a lot of those sweeteners in there can cause real gut disruption. And there's been studies of people who drink a lot of the diet sodas have worse problems with their weight than the people who are drinking the regular sugar sodas, because of the disruption in their gut microbiome. So I'm even careful with these days gum or mints, if they have artificial sweetener in it that is not natural. I've kind of made the switch to the less is more approach, right? So I look for mints that have that maybe they're regular sugar in them, but I just have one. I'm just careful with it, right? Because I'd rather have that than a lot of chemicals that I'm finding in like your typical mints or gum. Okay, so let's see. Popular foods that have added sugar. So these are kind of your sneaky ones that you might not expect. Sauces. Most pasta and pizza sauces, salad dressings, teriyaki sauce, and barbecue sauce. Some of those are obvious because they taste sweet, but they have a lot of sugar in them. And like I said, I brought up ketchup. Go look at a ketchup bottle, see how many grams of sugar in it. It's alarming. And again, you might love ketchup and you don't want to give up ketchup. Just be aware that that has sugar in it. So if you're trying to kind of relax on your sugar intake, or not relax, but just kind of cut some of that out, just be aware of when you're eating it. And then that will help you make some better choices of maybe how much and how often. Breads, bagels, waffles. A sliced bread can contain upwards of 5 grams per slice. Yogurt. I love yogurt. I think yogurt's amazing, but sweetened yogurt is not amazing. It's got a lot of sugar in it. So the vanilla, the fruit flavored, if that's how you eat yogurt and you need to have a little bit of sweet, then check those ingredients. Try and go for something more organic, and that maybe is sweetened by using honey or something just a little bit better. But I'd say a better option would be to get a plain Greek yogurt, or the yogurt that you like, full fat, and then add maybe a little honey yourself. I've tried maple syrup before, or just add fruits in it and kind of start getting used to things not being so sweet. It really is interesting when you get off of sugar for a while. If you can even quit sugar for a week, when you go back to it, you'll taste it in everything, that you'll be kind of shocked. There's certain things that I'm like, oh, that just tastes so sweet because I've been off sugar, and it would be a bagel or something you would never expect, sugar to be in. So we just kind of need to refresh our sugar taste buds and reset our gut buddies to where we can have sugar, but we're not constantly, invading our bodies with it. Because that's what I feel like it is. When I have sugar, it feels like an invasion, and I flare up, and it's the whole thing. Packaged snacks, dried fruits. I love dried fruits, but you have to be careful with those because a lot of them are kind of dusted with sugar. And even then, they're dried. So you're going to eat a lot more of them. So like a dried, like I love dried pineapple. It's much easier to eat a ton of that because it's dried. And again, I'm always watching not just my regular sugar, but also the fructose and the sugar that I get in fruit, because I want to manage those blood sugar levels. Of course, sugar sweetened beverages. Processed meats. So plain and honey smoked deli meats, jerky, and sausages can contain an extra 1 or 2 grams of sugar per serving. And canned goods, nut and seed butters, baked beans, canned fruit. I think those are kind of obvious. But again, when you really start paying attention to it and reading those labels, you're going to find it in everything. And so it's just, like I said, being aware. Let's see. I'm not going to get into too much of how much sugar each person should have per day because everybody's bodies are different. But I think that the main thing is just really understanding that it does disrupt our gut microbiome in various ways. We talked a little bit about that. And then really just being able to identify it and make an informed decision. There's days when I have sugar and I know exactly what I'm doing. And I know that maybe I'm not going to feel good later, but it's a choice. I look at it like a cocktail, right? Like you're out with your friends, it's like that third cocktail though that you were like, I probably shouldn't have had that. That sent me over the edge. That's kind of how I look at with sugar. I can have a little bit, but let's not go crazy. I want to be able to function the next day. And you'll notice once you get off sugar, how much it does impact you because you'll notice that difference in how you feel when you have it and when you don't. And it's much better. It's a much better feeling when you're leading a low sugar lifestyle. Okay, so one of the other things I wanted to bring up, I just lost my notes. Oh, here it is. Okay, so allulose. Allulose is a sugar, and this is kind of my food of the week. It's not technically a food, but I want to talk about it. Allulose is new on the scene, and after I just explained to you how you have to be careful with all these sugar substitutes, I'm really curious about allulose, and I've been incorporating it for a few months now. And for me, I really like it. It doesn't mess up my gut. You kind of have to start slowly on it. But what it is, it's a monosaccharide, meaning a simple sugar molecule, and it can be produced from corn or fructose. The thing about allulose that's really interesting is that it doesn't raise blood sugar levels and or insulin levels. So, and I've tested it out with my glucose monitor, but the research is saying that it actually could be really beneficial for people who struggle with diabetes. You can find organic allulose. I found it online. I've tried a couple different brands. I listened to a professor, Dr. Ben Bickman, who I really admire, and he has a lot of really interesting things to say about allulose. Again, it's kind of a newer thing on the scene, but the emerging science is that this could be a really helpful sugar substitute and without really causing any harm to our bodies. And again, jury's still out. They're still doing more research, but I've been experimenting with it. You can bake with it. It's not as sweet as sugar, so you have to use a little bit more. So like if you have the recipe calls for a cup of sugar, you would use probably a cup and a half of allulose. It doesn't have the extreme sweet to it, but I love it. I'm mixing it right now. I do a blueberry chia seed kind of jam that I make, and I sweeten it with allulose. And that's what I put in my yogurt to kind of sweeten it up every day. There's also new science showing that it helps to produce GLP-1. So that's interesting. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about it down the road. I actually found a company that is making allulose, and I invested in it a little bit because I really think that it's going to be the next big thing in the sugar world. And there is something about that sweet taste that without it being so intense, it doesn't seem to cause me when I have it. I'm like satisfied. Like I put it in my little yogurt and I'm like, I'm good. That I don't need more of that. That was good. I don't taste any kind of chemical aftertaste. It's not it's not in its pure form. Of course, they have to process it to get it out of the corn. But from what I listened to a panel of doctors and scientists who were talking about allulose. The way it's broken down, it's interesting, and I think it might be a good one. So if you're interested in finding a sugar substitute, maybe try out allulose, see how you do with it. But I like it so far. So, if my hair falls out, then we're going to maybe have to come back and say allulose wasn't so good. But, but a lot of this is just trial and error. Error. Okay, so I think that's probably enough about sugar. Next week, part 3 of this Gut Disruptor series is going to be Alcohol and NSAIDs. NSAIDs. I did a little bit about NSAIDs way back when, and I have a hard time saying it. But I want to, and that's hard, right? Because those are things that NSAIDs are painkillers. We use them a lot for toothache, headache, um, and some people use stronger versions of it for deeper pain. But I think we just need to be aware, and alcohol too. I mean, a lot of us, we have a glass of wine or we drink beer or whatever it is that you drink. I'm not saying don't do those things. I'm just want to bring up how they affect the gut so that you have a better understanding of when you are doing those things that maybe you need to step up your gut health game at the same time. I hope I got enough information out to you where you can start paying attention to some more labels this week. And you'll start seeing how sneaky they are in those processed foods and ultra processed foods. Okay, you guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I will see you next week. Take care of yourselves. I hope this helps. Bye.